To our afternoon session. We have 3 concurrent sessions happening right now, and you are in the Maingan Ecological and Cultural Importance of Lake Superior Wolves session. So we have an hour today, and just to give you a little overview of the session, then I'm going to pass the majority of the time to our presenters. Maingan the gray wolf is an iconic species with important cultural and ecological meanings for the Lake Superior Basin. The goal of this session is to provide attendees with information about Northern Wisconsin wolves, including how local students and organizations engage with wolf research and policy. So we have 3 sort of sections, more than 3 presenters though, and they will introduce themselves in turn. But to start, I'd just like to hand it over to Rick Erickson and Bayfield School District students to introduce themselves and kick off the session. And I forgot to say each group or each speaker has about 15 minutes, and we'll do one big Q&A at the end where everybody will be on screen. So over to you, Rick and students.
Miigwech. Hi, my name is Rick Erickson. I teach chemistry, physics, and alternative education at Bayfield High School. And in my alternative education program, which is an experiential program, we've done quite a bit of work with the Red Cliff Treaty Natural Resources Division, and part of what we do with them is kind of follow their wolf research. So I'm going to just run down real quickly, showing you some pictures of things we've done, and then I'm going to turn it over to a couple of former students who graduated last year. I have Brianne, who graduated last year, and Coleman, who graduated last year. And they're going to talk a little bit about their experience and the things that they remember from what we did. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and talk a little bit about some of the things we've done. So let me get this up and running here. And okay, so like I said, we do a lot of work with the Red Cliff Treaty Natural Resources Division, and one of the projects we work on is a trail camera project. And initially that project started probably about 5 years ago, and they were interested in just getting an inventory of the carnivores in the area. And specifically, they were looking for the presence of American marten, which is a clan animal. But as we worked on that project, we kind of evolved into also paying attention to what they were doing with wolves. So we work with them with their trail cameras, but we also have about half a dozen trail cameras of our own that we put out. And so we have the alternative education students are out pretty regularly checking these cameras. We've had a couple of opportunities to have cameras out on the island. So out on this is a student putting up a camera on Basswood Island. We've also had the opportunity to go out with Treaty Natural Resources when they're preparing for their research. And so last year we were out with them when they were trapping. They were hoping to get a wolf to collar so that they could monitor its movements. And so this is a student working on setting the trap and covering up the trap, and Coleman doing the same thing, and Coleman, who's with us today. And one of the Treaty Natural Resource Division biologists who's working with us is working on that trap also. We've also had the opportunity to go out and do some telemetry work, and because they do have wolves collared in a couple of different packs. And so we've had a chance to go out with them and try to do locations and triangulate their location, and that's been a great opportunity. We've also gone out with them on tracking expeditions. We do every once in a while get emails from them. They try to keep us up to date on what's happening. So they'll send us maps. So this is a map that shows the pack boundaries on the Chequamegon Peninsula, which is really fun for us to watch because during the Alt Ed program, we're out and about most of the time. We try to spend as little time in school as we can. And so it's nice to know where the wolf pack boundaries are and where we might run into something. This is actually a real cool map that they just sent us about a week ago that shows the Echo Valley pack in blue and the Red Cliff pack with the white dots and the purple outlines. And it shows the boundaries between the Red Cliff pack and the Echo Valley pack. But you can also see there's a line on the south there. There's a string of dots. About a week or so ago, the pack took a trip out to Long Island and back, which was pretty cool because it was outside of its territory. It didn't cross any boundary lines because there are no packs to the south of that. But one of the things we do when we get these maps is we talk a lot about the wolf ecology and what's happening with the wolf. So we do some of that. We had a real cool opportunity to go out with them one time during the day to do some wolf howling. We were out doing a telemetry unit and we knew the wolves were close. So we howled and got a response in the middle of the day, which was pretty cool. And then one of the things, like I said, we really try to just talk about wolf ecology and one of the things that we talk about is identification, because we hear a lot of people who tell us that they see wolves all over the place, but we really try to help people be able to identify the difference between a coyote and a wolf. And so this sequence of photos is really interesting because this is one of our trail cameras at North Pikes Creek, and pretty distinctive coyote here. And the same thing, a nice profile with the pointy nose and pointy ears and all that jazz. And a day later at this exact same site, this lovely animal came through. And so it was a great opportunity because, you know, one of the things that's hard to tell on trail cameras is size. And so to be able to have these two events happen back to back was really cool, to be able to have the kids see these things that we've talked about, the different physical characteristics of the coyote and the wolf. So I'm going to turn this over to Brian and Coleman and just let them talk about what some of their favorite experiences have been with respect to studies with the wolf and the Alt-Ed program. So whoever wants to go.
Well, obviously I'm gonna go first.
Okay.
Well, I'd say this picture right here is a really good picture to show like how to identify what is a coyote, because it has the pointy nose, pointy ears, the short legs, and the bushy tail. And that identifying these two, oh, wrong way. These two animals is actually pretty hard. And learning how to do that in the Alt-Ed class was actually one of my favorite things to do. And also the howling was really fun. My idea.
True, that was Brian's idea. Yeah.
It was just super cool to hear them like during the day. It's kind of rare to hear them during the day. You usually hear them at night.
Yeah, that actually, that's a good one for Brian to point out, because when we were out there and we were doing a telemetry unit, and we identified that the wolf was probably within a half a mile. And so Bri said, well, can we howl? And the biologist's response was, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. They're probably not going to respond, but sure, let's try it. And when we howled and got 2 responses from different directions, it was pretty cool.
I'd say it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's a very rare occasion for that to happen.
Sure.
Your turn.
All right. Oh, damn it. I'd say, wait, which way? Well, my favorite thing is kind of same as Brian said too. It's like telling the difference between the wolves and coyotes, because I kind of live out in the woods like Erickson does. So, you know, we hear mostly wolves at night and stuff, but we see coyotes and wolf tracks all the time. And one of my other favorite things was, wait, which way was to the traps? That way?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
One of my other favorite things that we did is go out and help set up the traps and everything. I mean, growing up kind of in Indiana, we didn't hear much about wolves and stuff. It's kind of vicious animals and and you're supposed to trap them to kill them and get rid of them because they're not needed and stuff. And I kind of came up here and we just trapped to kind of call them and stuff. And I also just like going out and searching for them and stuff, and be able to howl at the pack like Brian suggested and stuff, because it's true, it's very rarely you ever get to hear them, even if that's night, and then to actually howl back early in the morning to get a response back too is pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
That's all I really have to say though.
Okay, that's cool.
I'd say this picture right here is pretty cool though, because
Yes, son.
there's 2 people tracking 2 wolves at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd say that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it is pretty cool. And then also one of my other favorite things was to set up trail cameras and be able to get pictures of coyotes and wolves and be able to see where they're moving and get the maps and kind of be able to track them and see where they're going.
Also making funny faces when you go to pick up the camera.
That was another thing too. Yeah.
All right, so that just gives you a little bit of a flavor. And like I said, this is an alternative education program. It's open to high school students. They're in grades 9 through 12. And some of them are in here all 4 years of high school, and we have 4 hours in the morning. So it's great to be able to have these opportunities to do experiential work, to get out into the field. This is a good example of the type of program we do, where we want our students to be able to engage in the environment where they grew up. We want them to engage with the Red Cliff tribe, because about 80% of our students are tribal members. We want to give them the opportunity to see professions in the area that are related to the types of things that we study. So we're often, like I said, working with the professionals at Red Cliff so they can get an idea of what kinds of possible opportunities there would be after high school. But we want them doing that through experience. So rather than bringing speakers in, and going through slide presentations like we're doing now. We really like to do experiential learning, to be outside. We're in the middle right now of our sugar bush project. We're often out looking for, we're foraging for wild edibles, looking for mushrooms often. And we typically do this, we're doing these things all in conjunction. So if we're out checking our trail cameras, we're also looking for mushrooms. It's just a real cool program to get the kids involved in their environment, and to engage in things that are real authentic research projects and activities. So I'm going to ask, because we do have a little bit of time. Is there a timekeeper? I assume, Aaron, are you watching time here?
Oop, I was muted. I can keep time for you all. You have about 5 minutes, but feel free to use it how you'd like.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to ask, and it's always hard to put students on the spot, but I'm just going to ask if they have any response to things like what is because this program is about wolves, right? And there's a lot of controversy right now, and there's a lot of misunderstanding of wolves. And so one of the things that we try to do, like, again, through experience, is to really try to increase awareness and an understanding of wolf ecology. So I'm going to put them on the spot a little bit and ask if the wolf has any special meaning to them culturally, personally, how they feel about the wolf in general, and see where they go with it.
Well, personally, I love wolves. Wolves are just amazing creatures in themselves. And I'm not quite sure if I'm Wolf Clan. I think I'm Bear.
Okay.
But I think wolves are very just beautiful, and I love them. What do you think?
I think the only kind of special place is they don't hold it, I guess, kind of cultural, but not entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Only a little cultural, just because of what I've learned about the Ojibwe culture and stuff from being in the class with you. But it's like growing up in Indiana in a big populated city, you're not seeing wolves like we do and tracking them around and stuff. So, the only thing you hear and see about them is these vicious creatures that like to just kill and attack and are bloodthirsty. Like we hear in Hollywood and horror stories that sell and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Then coming up here, we're tracking them, getting pictures and learning about them and learning wolf ecology. And you kind of learn that they're, important to the Ojibwe people and their culture and everything. And then that they're a vital source to the ecosystem, kind of keep everything in balance and stuff.
Cool. So that's a good point to bring up, that one of the things we also do in here whenever possible is we bring in tribal members to talk about, we do it in the field. We typically don't bring them into the classroom, but we also will, if we have a chance, try to learn through other presentations about these types of things. So for example, we did watch Maingan, the story of the brotherhood between the Anishinaabe and the wolves, so that there's a cultural perspective. We listened to tribal elders talk about the wolves. We really don't dive into the controversies, like the hunting controversies, the trapping controversies. We really are just trying to learn about wolf ecology in general, just to gain an appreciation for that species, as we would for any other, like the American marten or whatever else it is that we happen to be talking about at the time. So I think, unless you guys have anything extra to say.
I'd say one thing I like that I learned very important up here is down in Indiana, there's a lot of canaries and singing birds and stuff that you hear early in the morning that sing certain songs and stuff. And some of them are protected by law down in Indiana. Then there's other ones you're not supposed to shoot. They're not illegal, but everyone will hate you for it and stuff. And you're supposed to respect them because they're beautiful creatures and stuff. But, the birds you could protect and should protect, and the wolves, who cares? They're just vicious creatures. Then up here, it's just like, well, regardless of what animal it is, you respect it because it has a life.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we have for you. We'll be around for the question and answer. So if you have questions you want to ask later, you can certainly do that. And otherwise, we will turn it back over to Aaron, I believe, who will move on to the next phase.
Sounds good. Thank you. And there are questions already, so get ready for those later.
Okay.
So now we're going to transition to our second presentation from Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, Philomena, Quebec. And my apologies if I mispronounced your name. Sorry about that.
Oh wow, I just made a silly mistake and gave a whole little talk and wasn't unmuted, but haha, there we go. So good morning, good afternoon, y'all. My name is Philomena Quebec, and I'm with the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission. I'm from Bad River, and I'm a policy analyst working on treaty rights implementation. Really glad to be here with you today. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the relationship between the Anishinaabe and Mayangan. Wolf is Mayangan is the Ojibwe name for wolf. And then we're also going to talk about how this relationship is our relationship with the United States in relation to Mayangan. So and then finally we'll kind of finish up and talk about some tribal strategies that have been developed to protect Mayangan habitat and then also the packs themselves. And so if you know anything about kind of our local history in the northern part of the state, the Anishinaabe have been in the Upper Great Lakes region for centuries and really exercising their jurisdiction and governance over lands and waters, territories, many centuries prior to any European Americans coming to the area. And so when we're thinking about our worldview as Anishinaabe, we have some very fundamental differences that are important to talk about. So for our communities, trees and plants and water, fish, animals, minerals, many different things that we kind of objectify in English language are considered relatives with the spirit, and they have agency, so the ability to move in the world and make decisions and do things mindfully, and then also cooperative purpose. And this is reflected in our language, in our belief structure, our cosmology, in our art, in many different aspects of our cultural expression. So I'm gonna direct you here to this bandolier bag. I don't know the exact origin of this bag here, but it's very it's really emblematic of Ojibwe art. And as you can see, there's all these different flowers. This is the woodland art style, and all these flowers are connected to the stems and to the roots. They're all connected to one another. And this is about the connections that we all have. Our lifeblood flows through us, and we all have these connections. We're understanding more and more. Science is telling us that trees talk to each other through their root structures, and as Ojibwe, we've known this for a very long time. We also know that the different animals that live in our forests and in the waters have connections to each other and affect each other. And Mayangan has a very important and special role within our ecosystem here. I'm just gonna contrast it to some of the mythology that comes from the European traditions around wolves. We all know the story of the big bad wolf, and and there's a lot of research out there about how these worldviews color people's perceptions of wildlife phenomena. In Wisconsin, now that the state has resumed the management authority over Mayangan, many have said that Mayangan aren't really managed as a resource, but they're managed as a problem. And I think these fundamental ideas and thoughts are very are really important to exploring in terms of how we're going to make decisions about animals like wolves. So, quickly, I'm a lawyer, and I study law, federal law, state law, but also tribal law. And part of our tribal law comes from this oral tradition that we have. And within our creation story, we believe that the people and all the different parts of creation receive what are called, we call original instructions. And these original instructions relate to our treaty rights because these are our responsibilities, things that we have to carry out in the natural world in order to maintain our cultural distinctiveness, our Anishinaabe-ness. And they also relate to our responsibilities to other aspects of creation. So I wish my elder Mokangiza Sivan could be here. He talked a lot about the relationship that the Ojibwe have with Mayangan, but he passed away last month. So it's our responsibility as the people coming after him to continue to talk about these things. In our creation story, the Wenabuju walked with Mayangan and had this obligation to walk with Mayangan and name all the various aspects of creation with Mayangan. And as they walked and they spent time together, they became like brothers, and they were united with ongoing reciprocal responsibilities. So, Mayangan really are very important about teaching humans to survive in our environment, how to hunt, how to work cooperatively to raise children. They're incredible caregivers. And it's not just the mom and dad wolf, but it's the whole family of adult wolves that take care of these children. They also have responsibilities in the environment, and they're very important responsibilities to fulfill as apex predators. As the Anishinaabe, we have responsibilities too, to protect Mayangan, to consider Mayangan's best interest, to learn the lessons from Mayangan, and then also be humble when we're visited by a Mayangan. The Anishinaabe also have relationships with the United States and with other nations, and signed treaties with the United States. We had been in control of much of much of Wisconsin, Michigan, much of Minnesota, and in treaties we signed with the United States, we ceded title to this land, but kept certain rights, including the right to harvest and these rights of other usual rights of occupancy. And this, hasn't really been defined, but we define it as fairly open-ended. And so after the signing of the treaties, there was a real change in many, many things. And, as we can see, the Mayangan was not revered or respected by the people who came, but rather hunted to annihilation within the state. At the same time, there were concerted policies of the United States to get rid of Indian people through cultural re-education programs and other policies that harmed our people and harmed our tribal sovereignty. So, of course, there's dynamics in these relationships, and tribal folks, spent a lot of the 20th century pushing back against these federal policies. And, we really saw a lot of fruit coming to bear in the 1970s and 1980s. There was passage of a lot of good legislation to protect tribes and tribal people. Around this same time, we see Mayangan packs returning to Wisconsin. And, when Mayangan packs were extirpated from the state in the 1800s and in the 20th century, at a certain point, they returned on their own. So this wasn't even, their return to our state and occupation of the state was of their own initiative, their own volition, their own agency. That in the 1980s, the tribes won their treaty rights case and spent a lot of time litigating all aspects of that case. While this case was going on, the wolves, Mayangan was under federal protection under the Endangered Species Act, and really issues of Mayangan management were not addressed. So we don't have any clear lines in terms of Mayangan management when we're talking about state and tribal relations with respect to the treaty rights case right now. The treaty rights case was really focused on the harvestable resources and the split between the tribes and the state. There were trials on walleye and muskie and deer and timber. And the main role of the case is that the tribes regulate their own off-reservation activities, and the state's regulations are not enforced against against our tribal harvesters, as long as the tribal regulations are effective to protect the legitimate state concerns of conservation, health, and safety interests. So, part of my job is I work on regulation development and implementation issues related to the treaty rights regulations. They cover hunting, fishing, camping, gathering, all kinds of different things. And then these are enforced by tribal conservation enforcement officers, and they go to tribal court if there's ever a violation. But certainly the tribes are concerned with more than just those quote unquote resources that they harvest. And, there's a concern that we need balance within our ecosystems in order to have the kind of environment where we can harvest resources, where we can have black ash and maple trees to be able to harvest from, where we can have deer that are healthy and free from potentially harmful diseases like chronic wasting disease. And so, because the tribes harvest so many different resources, a very healthy ecosystem is important. The tribes are concerned about environmental issues, and so this is permitting related to things like mining and pipelines. But Mayangan protection is also a priority for tribes, not just because of the cultural implications and the affinity that the tribes have for Mayangan, but also because of the very important role they serve within protecting medicinal plants from overgraze and keeping our deer herds healthy. So, there's a number of different strategies that the tribes have employed to protect Mayangan. A lot of what we do is about storytelling, and we're going to elevate the importance of Mayangan using data and science. And so we have a lot of scientists that work at GLFWIC, and we talk about that, and also our own traditional ecological knowledge and this ecological knowledge that has been built up over time, of over many millennia of living with Mayangan, and not experiencing really any ill effects from that, but actually a tremendous amount of benefit from that relationship. The tribes are certainly in a position to advocate for public policies that protect Mayangan. Intertribally, there's a lot of intertribal work. When the tribes get together, their voice is stronger. And then working with many different state and federal agencies, also private environmental groups and educational organizations. And then the tribes are not shy about using their own tribal sovereignty to come up with strategies to protect Mayangan populations, both on reservation and then off reservation within the tribe ceded territories. One thing I do want to say is we should be really proud that we have this healthy population of Mayangan within our state. It shows that we're not just simply a suburb or an outcropping of Illinois, but we have a completely different thing going on here. And having healthy wolf populations makes our state unique. It draws people to come here. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard a wolf, but I have a few times, and you know, and they're pretty special beings. So I just want to conclude here. Thank you so much, Miigwech Ga Bizendawieg. Thank you for listening, and I'm going to turn it back over to our facilitators now.
Thank you so much. I'm learning a lot myself. I really appreciate you all being here. Let's see. So our third presentation. So we have 15 minutes for Abby Fergus, and then we'll go into Q&A. So don't forget, you can enter your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and you can also upvote them if you see a question that interests you.
Bonjour everyone, my name is Abby Fergus, and what is happening? Okay, I'm the wildlife specialist for Mashkazibee Natural Resource Department for the Bad River Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians, and today I'm going to be talking about what we have been up to for the past few years in the Mashkazibee Wildlife Program and stewarding our relationship to Mayangan, and also talk a little bit about how Mayangan and Nibi, or water, are intimately connected. So I'm white, and I have also always lived on Anishinaabe land. I come from Southwest Michigan on Lake Michigan, and then I went to college in the middle of the Lower Peninsula by the Saginaw Chippewa tribe, and finally I moved up here to the Chequamegon Bay and began working for Bad River as an employee in 2018. But originally my interest and curiosity in the knowledge that Anishinaabe hold about Mayangan developed in college when Standing Rock was going on, and I was really diving into my goals of becoming a wolf biologist. So I've had the privilege of learning about Mayangan and all of ecology, not only from Western science and knowledge systems, but also from Anishinaabe science and knowledge systems. And that's a really important experience I want to underline, because all of us settlers can only benefit from honoring and listening to Indigenous knowledge, because as Phoebe shared, Anishinaabe have been here for centuries, and before then we're also living for millennia in coexistence with Mayangan and all of these other beings that we rely on and share an ecosystem with. So my relationship with Bad River started when I was an intern still in college in 2017, and I had reached out to I don't know why it's forwarding on its own, sorry. I had reached out to every Anishinaabe tribe I could find with a wildlife program, and Bad River responded that I could come up and help update the Mashkazibee Mayangan relationship plan by interviewing farmers, non-tribal farmers, wolf biologists, and tribal members for input. And I did that in this plan, originally written by my predecessor, Lacey Hill-Caster, and outlines the protections within the reservation, but also in the buffer zone around the reservation shown in this map for Mayangan against hunting, and also just outlines how we are going to steward our relationship with Mayangan, because you don't manage your brother, you take care of your relationship with your brother. So that was the beginning of my relationship with Bad River, and ultimately did lead to us updating the plan in 2019, which we did proactively because we were looking ahead and anticipating the delisting, so we wanted to be prepared. Another example of the proactive work that Bad River, along with other tribes and GLIFWIC, which is the commission which represents the different Ojibwe tribes that Phoebe works for. We hosted the Mashkizibi Mayingan Symposium last year, and we wanted to not only bring together tribes to talk and prepare for Mayingan delisting and prepare to continue to try to protect Mayingan from unjust killing, but we also invited federal and state agency employees to engage with us on these topics. And we also invited the public, whether they were tribal members or not, so we could all come together and talk about our relationship with Mayingan. And the symposium was one of the most amazing experiences in my professional life so far, and it was really beautiful because we not only had presentations like we're doing today, but we also were able to have breakout sessions that were more conversational, and for example helped one farmer troubleshoot carnivore coexistence on her farm. But we also had traditional storytelling from different Anishinaabe elders. We had feasts, and there was really great relationship building and knowledge sharing at that event that unfortunately no Wisconsin elected officials or DNR representatives accepted our invitation to. And recently I finished my master's education with Adrian Treves of the Carnivore Coexistence Lab out of UW-Madison and the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies. And my thesis is available online. The first chapter outlines the deterrent research I did. You can see me weed whacking a line of what's called flaggery, which is just a Swedish word for flagging. And a fox light is the yellow device that comes on at night and flashes lights. So I did a crossover experiment where every farm received treatment and control in the same summer. So that picture with the cute little coyote pups was during a control period where you can see the flags were bunched up and the battery was taken out of the fox light. And that kind of experimentation is like gold standard in the scientific world. And the reason is because that allows you to compare one study area to itself instead of kind of extrapolating between similar but different study areas. The other chapter addresses Western scientists and state and federal biologists and addresses our need as a field to better work with tribes and also with livestock farmers on carnivore coexistence. So now I want to transition to talk some about how it is that Mayingan and Nibi are connected, drawing from not only the lessons I've learned on the Bad River Reservation since 2017, but also from a really exciting project in what's now Minnesota called Voyageurs Wolf Project by Thomas Gable, Austin Homkes, and Joseph Bump along with their team. So some of the ways that Mayingan and Nibi are connected include the fact that for their denning areas, wolves require running water to be nearby and also a source of food. And that running water often is the source of food because rivers and other waterways are natural corridors that all sorts of wildlife use to get around the landscape more easily because animals are really intentional about how they move across the landscape to preserve energy and be near food sources. So then wolves will also travel these waterways in general, but also to follow deer. And we even know that some wolves go fishing. And then a major finding that Voyageurs Wolf Project shows us and talks about with their trail camera monitoring and investigation of kill sites is that in the summer when wolves are broken up, not really traveling in full packs, but kind of traveling on their own and meeting up every once in a while, those individuals are kind of hunting smaller prey on their own And one thing they do is ambush prey on beavers, and that has an impact on wetlands because Amic, the beaver, is an ecosystem creator. And basically every animal up here at some point in their life relies on these wetlands. Wolves can also impact wetlands by moving large animals like deer across the landscape regularly, so they're not overgrazing or overbrowsing on vegetation, which also affects the course of waterways. And one neat story I was told recently by Chris Arbuckle, the wildlife technician, was his uncle was out fishing in the Kakagan sloughs on his boat, and he saw Mayingan swimming along. So there's a lot of connections between Mayingan and Nibi. Oh, I have a fun little video. Let me see if this works. Here is a member of the Mashkazibi pack on the Bad River Reservation running along the Mashkazibi Falls, the Bad River Falls. And then after kind of checking us out and watching us because we were on the other side of the river, they ducked back into that willow brush. So that was a really fun encounter with Mayingan and Nibi that took place last September. And then I also have a picture there of Mayingan tracks at the Bad River meander. If you're familiar at all with what we've been dealing with at Bad River with and Bridge Line 5, you might be familiar with hearing about the meander. That's where the river is kind of pinching off and about to kind of overflow where the Line 5 pipeline is. And then one more story I wanted to tell kind of further illustrates also how Bridge Line 5 plays into all of this. This picture shows Gimiwan, which means it rains in Anishinaabe-Moan, and Nigweyab, which means rainbow in Anishinaabe-Moan. They're the breeding male and female of the Mashkazibi pack. And you can see that they're running shoulder to shoulder, which is an indicator that they're a mated pair. And I had a really interesting experience I'm still interpreting and learning from in the winter of 2020, because that September beforehand, our department discovered a mysterious odor where Enbridge had to dig up the pipeline and weld onto it because they detected integrity issues there. And we had to push them to investigate why there was that unexplained odor. And we still really don't have an explanation, but you can see this list of interesting chemicals that came back from sampling. So I ended up snowshoeing out there in January because there was some type of precipitation and we needed to check on the sites. And I was scared because I stopped dead in my tracks right where that odor had been detected in September and wondered what I was smelling. But then I looked over to my left and you can see this picture is a pile of Nigweyab's estrus, which means that she was in heat and ready to mate with Gimiwan and bring new pups into the world. So she left that stinky estrus right where Enbridge had caused some type of mysterious odor. And finally, to tie it all together, I just want to underline how all these experiences on the reservation that I've been lucky to have helped me be a better scientist, because it's given me a more holistic education, which helped shape that carnivore coexistence research I did in master's. Because usually with that fladry I showed you, which you can also see in this picture of me walking along, traditionally that's put along the whole periphery of livestock pasture, and that might work on like farms where people aren't grazing their animals. But up here there's really awesome farmers who do regenerative grazing, so the pasture is like can be hundreds of acres big, and that was not going to be feasible. So learning how wolves move across the landscape along waterways helped me make a decision to treat livestock pasture where waterways and deer corridors led up to the pasture. And that seemed, my sample size was really small, so we can't draw like statistical conclusions, but the small sample size, the direction of the data did seem to show that those deterrents reduced coyotes, which were the only predator I detected besides bears, from coming to pasture. So looking ahead at 2021, there's a lot of work to do following this unfortunate wolf slaughter that occurred to understand how packs are doing. And also, when wolves are hunted, they're more likely to end up going after livestock animals because there's pack breakup, there's a lot of chaos in the woods. There's more dispersing wolves that aren't in packs and are looking for a new territory or a new pack to join or to create one. And those individuals are more likely to depredate or prey on livestock. And I actually just heard today that a calf has been killed in Bayfield by a wolf. And this is very predictable because of all the wolves that were just killed. So I want to continue carnivore coexistence by developing a volunteer program where folks can help me help farmers by monitoring for carnivore presence on their landscape so we can make decisions proactively, non-lethal decisions to try to prevent that from happening. So I included my email if you have any interest in being plugged in when I have that volunteer program ready. And otherwise, I plan to do as much coexistence outreach as I can, while I also focus on tracking the 5 reservation packs to check in on their health. And then in collaboration with other Anishinaabe tribes, we're really pushing the Wisconsin DNR to provide adequate data and answers to the tribes regarding what occurred with that wolf killing, where the reported numbers, at least 217 wolves were killed, but the scientific literature also indicates when a state allows a hunt to happen.
Did we lose Abby?
I think she was talking about there's literature that points out some correlation between more illegal kills of wolves when a state hunting season begins.
I think we've got her back. Thank you for stepping in.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, my computer died, but I was basically done.
There was a computer like noise and then just stopped. Thank you. Are you sure? Do you want a little more time, or we can move into questions?
Oh, I'll just finish what I was in the middle of saying. The reported number of wolves that were killed 2 weeks ago is 217, which was way over the quota that was allocated for non-tribal people in the first place. But also, according to scientific literature, when a state allows for a hunt to happen, that actually emboldens people to do more poaching. So there's even reason to believe that there's additional wolves that were killed and not reported, so they were poached. And then also 90 of the wolves that were turned in were females. So there's that much potential that many more pups were killed in the womb. So there's a lot of work for us to do, obviously, because relating back to what Phoebe was sharing about like the trauma and the stories my white ancestors brought over here and colonized Turtle Island with, those attitudes are still around. Luckily, they're a minority, but they have a lot of influence still, obviously, because a lobbying group was able to push through a hunt that the tribes were against and most residents of the state were against. So yeah, now we can go to questions. Thank you. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
No worries. I think it works. It seemed to work out great. We do have questions. So we have about, let's see, it looks like we have about 10 minutes for questions. Somewhat related to what you were just talking about, Abby. The question that has the most upvotes is, with the new hunting season just completed, how is a pack affected when the alpha or leader is removed?
Yeah, I can answer that. And I can like try answering more of the like sciencey questions and leave the policy questions to Phoebe, but also everyone else can chime in. So when breeding female in particular is killed, but also like if a breeding male is killed, the whole pack dynamic can fall apart, and the members can split off, and maybe a couple members go start a new pack. But it's a stressful time because you could kind of see a map earlier of the wolf packs, and it shows how like saturated and, like Phoebe said, lucky we are to have all these Mayingan packs. But that also means like a lot of the territory is taken up, so there's a lot of additional stress that can happen even if a pack isn't broken up. And even if it's like not the breeding male or female that's killed, you still could have less wolves around to help hunt and feed and take care of the pups. So we can't even fully understand all the ripple effects that it has, but it is definitely different than like the impact of hunting a prey animal like a cervid, because wolves are unique in their pack living structure. And like Phoebe shared with us all, it's the whole pack is like a really important family unit.
Thank you. Let's see, I think this next question I'll direct to Bayfield School students, or former students. Let's see. I think you mentioned that you may have been within a half mile of wolves during your telemetry project when you were doing the howling exercise. And so the question is, do the wolves use roads or trail systems in Bayfield County or avoid them? Maybe, yeah, I'll just let you answer that. Whoever wants to take it of the three of you.
I'd say they avoid them. Like, you don't want to get hit by a car and you don't want to encounter many people.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably seen maybe one or two on some roads and stuff, especially like Peterson's.
Mostly back roads though, because not many people use those roads.
Yeah, the only roads I'd say you could probably see tracks are the very remote back roads where barely anyone goes on and barely any of them get patrolled and stuff. Otherwise, they'd stick to trails mostly.
Yeah, and I would say that what we've seen with the boundaries is sometimes the boundaries are marked by roads. So they're crossing, but sometimes the road serves as a boundary marker.
Okay. Another question for you all, I think, is there's a thank you for your description of the wolf versus coyote identification. And wondering, how do wolves and coyotes sound different?
Oh, coyotes howl is very high pitched and wolves howl is very low.
Like a yippee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say high pitch and kind of a yelp or a
Coyotes are
yip.
yippy, yeah.
Okay, so if we hear the high-pitched yipping, that would be the coyotes then. Okay.
It's like something's being attacked, doesn't it? Like a scream.
A little bit sometimes.
Yeah, and I would say the wolves that we heard were pretty low pitched, and it was like a long drawn out howl as opposed to the yip yip yippee howling. Yep.
Okay. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I can't imagine what you all felt when you were out there and you got those howlbacks.
I'm gonna say, as a teacher, that was one of my favorite. I mean, I have a lot of favorite moments, but watching the students' response when the wolves actually howled back was pretty amazing.
I'd say it was a lot of fun. I used to do that all the time at my house because I live in the boondocks, so it was pretty amazing to hear him during the day.
Awesome. And I don't know, I think, let's see, Phoebe, or if that's right, you kind of touched on this, and actually a lot of people touched on this, but we have a question. What is the meaning of wolf clan? And maybe I'll add a follow-up to that for you, which is, you mentioned like the lessons learned from Brother Wolf and like cooperative parenting. And I'm wondering if you could maybe expand on that a little bit, but first start with what is the meaning of wolf clan? Whoever wants to take that question, I guess.
How about you take that one? I'm sorry, I forgot your name. At the school, you're Wolf Clan, hey?
Brian?
Oh, I'm not really Wolf Clan, I'm more Bear.
Oh, okay, I'm Bear Clan too. So my best friend up here, Aurora, is Wolf Clan, and I'm Bear Clan, and we're kind of like hang out together and take care of things in a slightly different way. You know, but we have this Ojibwe clan system, and it relates to our responsibilities to our community. And you know, wolf clans are protectors and you know, people who are looking out for the community. Maybe kind of externally facing forward. And I mean, I feel like in terms of, you know, in terms of how we take care of our kids and stuff. I mean, as Anishinaabe, we're you know, we're really taught to think about our families in a very big sense. So it's not just like the kids that we've had ourselves, but other kids in our community that we see that need help. And you know, we're adults, and it's our responsibility to, you know, do what we can to make sure that those kids, even if they're not our own, have what they need in order to grow up and be strong. And certainly that's how wolf packs work too. You know, like you see, Abby can talk more about this, but you know, in a wolf pack dynamic, you'll have you know, older sisters and brothers or aunties and uncles taking care of wolves, and you know, like wolf babies, so that the other folks can go out and hunt and, you know, bring back food for them. And this is, I mean, this is a pretty unique system that they've developed over a long period of time in order to be able to survive as carnivores out there. And so, you know, as Anishinaabe, we're paying attention to stuff like that, because it's part of how we learn and acquire knowledge and figure out, like, you know, strategies about how to live up north in a harsh climate as a human being with no like fur or claws or anything. We have to stick together.
Oh, I was muted. Thank you. So we had another question just pop in. And I don't know, this might be for Abby. Do hunting seasons like deer, bear, grouse affect wolves?
Yeah, I could. I think you can reasonably assume that would have some impact, because wolves are quite shy and avoidant. Some scientists believe that following the near extinction of wolves in this area, the ones that survived were more shy, even than like the wolves would have been before. So it depends on like what you're doing out there, but I think the biggest, well, I know that the biggest impact would be people who choose to bring a bunch of hounds out into the woods, which is generally associated with bear hunting. And it's not only during the bear hunting season, but there's a whole hound training season. So these domesticated canines are just ripping through the woods and often are not like in balance with the ecosystem and can cause devastation for a lot of critters. They probably like kill things while they're out training. So that I think it would be the biggest impact as far as different hunting seasons go.
Thank you. So we just have a minute left in our session. So I just want to thank everybody. And if you'd like, invite you to give like maybe a few moments parting words if you're up for it. And I'll just invite everybody to the next keynote, which is at 2:30. Yeah, I don't know. Would you all like, do you have any parting words for our audience?
I'll just say thanks. It was a great opportunity to have the students here, and Miigwech, Bizindawieg, thanks for listening.
That was a lot of fun.
I loved you guys' presentations. They were great. Those, you know, all those pictures and stuff, how cool. So
Yeah,
I hope you guys keep up, you know, keep up in the wildlife realm, either, you know, as a hobby or professionally, because that work you were doing was great.
Yeah, that work really gives me hope and kind of is a good medicine against what just happened to Maingen and the state. So miigwech to the Bayfield program.
Yeah,
I learned from y'all.
definitely. And thanks, Rick. I mean, what great inspiring work that you're doing as a teacher. Really meaningful.
Thank you very much. Yep, the programs were great. Thanks.
You see that, right?
Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you all for joining us, and thanks to all the presenters. It's really, really fantastic learning and hearing from you all.
Miigwech, Aaron. Bye.